Hey, I'm William, and on this channel, we work harder, not smarter. Meet Zeticus, an inexperienced wizard with a simple goal. Plainly spoken, he wants to defeat every dungeon in Wizard101 in order of their release. With over 49 distinct-ish dungeons, it gets complicated later, but for now don't worry about it, our goal is a lofty one. Come along for the ride as we travel through the eras of Wizard101 and induce both nostalgia and a minor trauma response. This is Wizard101 Chronological. In 2008, Wizard101 launched to critical acclaim. At the time, only the first 4 worlds, Wizard City, Crocotopia, Marleybone, and Mushu existed. While the DNA of the game was still there, at the time, things were very different. No mounts, no advanced pets, no criticals, and not even Pierce existed. In spite of its now seemingly rudimentary state, the game debuted with a total of 16 dungeons spread across the aforementioned 4 worlds. While the majority of these were main storyline dungeons, 3 of them, one each for Wizard City, Crocotopia, and Marleybone, were challenge dungeons. While not an official term, the purpose of these challenge dungeons was to test players in their capabilities, and served as pseudo-endgame content for each associated world. Because of the nature of these 16 dungeons releasing simultaneously, we're going to tackle them in storyline order, which means, being the one launch dungeon in Wizard City, we're going to immediately tackle the first challenge dungeon, Sunken City, at only level 10. So what exactly makes Sunken City so difficult? In essence, it boils down to sheer manpower. The original intent with this dungeon was designed with 4 players working cooperatively in mind. Being that we're flying solo for this dungeon, we've got a plethora of fights that are 3 versus 1, when most of the game is designed around 2 versus 1 encounters for a solo player. To borrow a term from Dungeons & Dragons, the action economy is stacked heavily in the enemy's favor. So how do we even the odds? In this instance, we rely on an overpowered pet's abilities. Meet Lord Rex, the Cloudburst sprite. Her job is simple. She's been trained to have 5 Maycast healing powers. While the triggering conditions vary from power to power, having a Maycast may interrupt the fight to heal Zeticus out of the turn order. While it's random luck if a Maycast triggers or not, it's the exact thing that gives us a fighting chance to see the dungeon through to the end. When you get pelted with 3 attacks in one round and you can only cast 1 spell on your own turn, trying to balance healing yourself and dealing damage quickly becomes tricky. Because of Lord Rex, we're able to focus on damage and make our way through. With that explanation out of the way, let's briefly cover the story of Sunken City. In essence, this whole dungeon is an escort mission. Meet Marla Stinger, a deaf wizard who, for one reason or another, is compelled to take myth magic classes. Doesn't seem like the best use of her time, but that's not my business. Unfortunately, she makes it our business when she requests we escort her through Sunken City to find proof of a ghoul named Grub, to rectify a poor grade she got on an assignment. The myth professor is convinced Grub isn't real, and apparently, writing about a myth is not how one excels in myth school. Against the better judgment of most people, as Sunken City is dead content barely anyone touches anymore, we venture in with the goal of finding proof of the existence of Grub. Immediately after we get inside, we run up against a gate, which forces us to search around for a means of lowering it. This comes in the form of our first fight, where we square off against 3 banshees. Immediately, the game isn't pulling any punches, as not only are these banshees the type of enemy to spam low-powered attacks round after round, they have a decent amount of health and prove quite time-consuming to defeat, although we do manage it. Getting past the first gate presents us with a second gate, where the general idea is the same. Go into a nearby tower and slap down whatever is inside. This time, it happens to be a ghost called Paulson, whose personality includes being red and not saying anything. Once we've defeated him, it's through the next gate and onto the real challenge of this dungeon. If you thought I meant the final boss in that last paragraph, you'd be wrong. But if it makes you feel better, I was also wrong, so we can be wrong together. No, the actual challenge comes in the form of opening a 3rd gate, but this time, as opposed to a single floor, we have to ascend 3 floors of enemy encounters, which culminates with another boss fight on the 4th floor, this time with a skeleton named Norton. Norton informs us that Grub is pursuing world domination, which... I mean, sure. Not at all the reason why we're here to defeat him, but it's good that he keeps busy and has his own hobbies. More importantly, the first floor of this tower hands us our first defeat of both the dungeon and the series. I want to keep a running tally of how many times we die, just as a fun little statistics thing for the number fans out there. So far, for those of you playing along at home, 1 Dedicus. Shortly after, on our first fight with Norton, we die again. Make that 2 Dedicus. Our second attempt goes much more smoothly, and we're able to make our way past Norton and finally confront Grub in his castle. When we find Grub, he seems to be entirely unbothered by having no minions to assist him in the battle. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to have minions, but sometimes things glitch out, so we get to fight him mano a mano, which is a fight we can easily win. Upon defeat, he remarks that he will be back to build an army of undead. Now, I don't want to call the bluff of a person I don't know, but it's been 16 years. The odds that Grub is returning with his army of undead seem slim, to put it nicely. Marla Stinger, much to her credit as useless, doesn't even wait in Sunken City to hear the good news. She ran and went back to Nightside, but acts like she's not guilty of abandonment. And because we're perpetually her errand boy, we have to return to the Myth Professor ourselves and rectify Marla's grave. Which we do, and for all our efforts we get rewarded with the badge Sunken City Survivor. Which may not seem like much of anything, but in 2008 we were much simpler people. A special badge was more than enough reward. So that was Sunken City. In all honesty, it's a pretty bad dungeon to solo, regardless of which school of magic you are. That I was able to do so was only by using a system that was implemented into the game several years after its release. 3-on-1 battles are kind of obscene for such a low-level character, when most of the gear available is little more than a health boost. Overall, I give it 4 out of 10 unfulfilled threats of revenge. Join us next time as Zedekis prepares to square off against the Throne Room of Fire. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more.